You want to get into Bowdoin College? I want to help you do it. My name is Craig Meister. You can go to my website, collegemeister.com, to learn more about me and how you can work with me one-on-one throughout the entire college admissions process. This is a time saver's guide to getting into Bowdoin, so I'm going to go fast. Hold on to your hats. Tip number 1. Below this video, there is a link to my classic article, How to Get into the Ivy League Ethically. I want you to read that article from start to finish, because if you do, and the earlier in high school the better, you will well position yourself to be in striking distance of Bowdoin as a high school senior. That article gives you tips on not what just to do in 12th grade, but also what you can and should be doing in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade to set the table for a very happy senior year. Now, of course, Bowdoin is not officially an Ivy League school. It's a small liberal arts college in Brunswick, Maine. However, it is a selective college. And if you can do everything recommended to you in that article, How to Get into the Ivy League Ethically, you, again, are going to be very well positioned to close the deal with Bowdoin as a high school senior. Tip number 2, Bowdoin is a school that offers a variety of ways in which to apply. Specifically, you can apply regular decision, which is what many students like to do, because that deadline is not until January, and you have all of the first half of your 12th grade year to apply. But they also offer early decision 1 and early decision 2 at Bowdoin. And these deadlines really should be considered strongly by you if you have Bowdoin as one of your top choice schools. Bowdoin's early decision 1 deadline is 11/15, that's November 15th. And their early decision 2 deadline is January 5th, not to be confused with the regular decision deadline, which also is January 5th. But the difference between early decision and regular decision is that anytime you apply to a college ED or early decision, you are binding yourself to going to that college. That means if you get in, you must go. Now, there are a couple loopholes, particularly for domestic students, if you don't get the 80 you're expecting, that maybe you can get out. But ultimately, no. I mean, this is a contract you are signing. It's something that is serious, and you should take it seriously, because you, a parent, as well as a school official or counselor, will be signing the ED agreement that says that if you get into Bowdoin, you will pull your applications from all the other schools and you will attend. Why is it advantageous to apply early decision 1 or early decision 2 to Bowdoin? Well, the acceptance rate is higher for early decision applicants than it is for regular decision applicants. But also, if you just want to enjoy the second half of your 12th grade year, ED2 makes a heck of a lot of sense, because you hear by December 15th. If you want to enjoy more of your senior year than you would have if you apply regular decision, you also would hear from Bowdoin ED2 if you apply January 5th by the middle of February. So in both cases, you're going to hear earlier than you would normally from Bowdoin for regular decision, which all the way waits until March, early April to notify students of their decision. So as a result, if you're serious, again, about really closing the deal with Bowdoin and getting into this as your first choice school, I would strongly consider ED1 preferably, so you can really get to the front of the line and make sure that you are demonstrating to Bowdoin that you've known for a while that Bowdoin is your first choice school by the time in which you apply, by the 15th, not the 1st, but the 15th of November here in the year 2023. So that's a little bit longer time frame you have to work with than for traditional ED schools, many of which have their deadlines of November 1st. The next tip is, I think, tip number 3 that I want to give you is on the supplement to Bowdoin. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but before I do, I just want to take a little time out and tell you that, of course, Bowdoin is a liberal arts school. It reads its applications very carefully. I'm not going to talk today about the Common Application Essay, but Bowdoin, if you're applying via the Common App, is definitely going to be reading that essay and taking it seriously. So make sure that you watch my previous videos about how to knock the Common App essay out of the park and really strategically approach which prompts to use and how to respond to them. I don't cover all the bases for Common App tips, but I do have some very in-depth videos about strategically picking the right prompt for you, and other tips related to how you can avoid common pitfalls many very smart students like you make when applying to schools like Bowdoin vis-a-vis their common application. So definitely watch those videos, all of which, again, are linked below this video. But again, back to tip number 3, specifically for Bowdoin. Bowdoin gives you a lot of nice little opportunities, sort of what I would call nooks and crannies on their supplement, the Common Application, to differentiate yourself. And my favorites, of course, have to do with writing, because that's where you can really, you know, through words, paint a picture of how you think and what your goals are and your value system. We'll get to all of those little opportunities in a moment. The first appears right after they ask you about which term you're applying for and which admissions plan, like I mentioned earlier, ED1, ED2, or regular that you're applying for. The next little question is, how did you first learn about Bowden? You have 140 characters. That's not many characters. But be as specific as you can be. Don't just say the website or my counselor. You know, use all 140 characters to the best of your ability and try to write it in a complete sentence if at all possible, so that you can be, again, you know, professional in your, you know, the way in which you present. Again, this is a liberal arts college. They want to see that you take this seriously. You don't have to be too serious, but I don't think it's too much to ask for a school like Bowden to write a complete sentence and not just throw out a word or two in generalities, but rather be as specific as you can in about 140 characters. Beyond that, Bowden does ask about things like your religious preference. You do not have to share it, but if you feel as though your religion may be underrepresented on campus, by all means, I encourage you to. And even if, frankly, you feel like you're from a religious community that may be very well represented on campus, you can, of course, feel free to. Bowden is test optional. With that said, if you're going to submit your test scores, I highly recommend that you submit them only if they are strong. If you are in the lower 25th percentile of what Bowden traditionally accepted before they went test optional, I would definitely not submit your test scores. If you're in the middle 50% of what Bowden traditionally accepted before they went test optional, that's where it's more of a judgment call. And if you're in the top 25th percentile of what Bowden used to accept before they went test optional, then I would definitely submit your scores. I think personally for Bowden, any score in the 1400s or higher is a lovely score to share. And then depending on your case-by-case situation, you know, you might want to talk to me or someone else you trust about, you know, submitting a 1340 in the context of the rest of your application versus a 1280 in the context of the rest of your application. Again, there's no hard and fast cutoffs at a school like Bowden. But you definitely don't want to share anything that could be a net negative for your application. So that's why working with someone like me would definitely help you be more confident and conscious of the value added of submitting a SAT or ACT test score to Bowden versus optionally not sharing any SAT or ACT scores that you have earned. The Bowden Supplemental Essay. Let's read it. Here's the prompt. Generations of students have found connection and meaning in Bowden's The Offer of the College, written in 1906 by Bowden President William DeWitt Hyde. To be at home in all lands and all ages, to count nature a familiar acquaintance, and art an intimate friend, to gain a standard for the appreciation of others' work and the criticism of your own, to carry the keys of the world's library in your pocket, and feel its resources behind you in whatever task you undertake. To make hosts of friends who are to be leaders in all walks of life, to lose yourself in generous enthusiasms and cooperate with others for common ends. This is the offer of the college for the best 4 years of your life. And the prompt is as follows. That was the preface to the prompt. Which line from the offer, which I just eloquently read, beautifully, I think, right? Resonates most with you. And then you can pick basically from a list, a bulleted list. You can either pick to be at home in all lands and all ages, or to count nature a familiar acquaintance, or an art. So you have to pick a line from this poem, basically, or this offer that Bowden is offering you. And then you have to write an optional 250-word response about reflecting on the line you selected and how it has meaning to you. So this is a lot to do about a 250-word essay, but let's cut right to the chase. Pick the line that resonates most with you, and then write an essay that is going to allow you to share new information that Bowden has never learned about you before and will never learn about you after they have to, until they have to, in the run-up to making a decision about whether or not to accept you. I really instruct students to treat this like a why Bowden. even though students could go down the rabbit hole of just talking about art as an intimate friend, or to lose yourself in generous enthusiasms and cooperate with others for common ends. I mean, you could definitely write a whole essay about pursuing a passion with friends or colleagues or teammates or people in your club or committee. But I would hesitate to recommend focusing exclusively on the past, but rather try to focus this essay in a manner where at least 30% of it, if not 50 or more percent of your response is about how you will pursue those things, or that type of behavior, or live, in the case of the line number 2, to count nature as a familiar acquaintance. How will you let your life speak, as it were, at Bowden in a manner where nature will be a familiar acquaintance? So do you see what I'm trying to do here? I'm basically trying to use this as a why Bowden essay, and you should too. And so in terms of how you would structure it, again, I'm very traditional in the sense that I would have a 1 to 2 sentence intro/thesis where you're basically laying out for the reader what this essay is about to cover. Then the body paragraph is going to show or prove what you're arguing or summarizing in your intro/thesis. And then your concluding sentence or two is going to say something new, thoughtful, reflective, that goes a step beyond the thesis and the body and does not just repeat anything that is stated already in that essay. All right, so again, let's say you click the line, to gain a standard for the appreciation of others' work and the criticism of your own. You could absolutely show and tell the story of a time in which you really benefited from being constructively criticized by a teacher or a friend, or I think they now call it constructive feedback, not constructive criticism. But let's say you got constructive feedback from a friend or a parent or a teacher, and it really benefited you in the long run. You could absolutely show and tell that story as sort of the anchor around which this essay will revolve, but you should at some point, no later than 70% into this essay, if not earlier, far earlier maybe, dovetail that and sort of segue that into showing how you will continue to be open to appreciation of others' works and or criticism of your own as a means by which to grow and learn and evolve and mature as a student and as a person. So again, this is an opportunity, and hopefully do so in the context of providing anecdotes where you're actually showing yourself engaging in Bowden-specific opportunities, like name a particular class where you think that would be more likely to happen, or when working with a particular Bowden professor, you name and explain why you think this Bowden professor will be a particularly positive influence on your life as a scholar or as a person because of something he or she works on, and how you would look or seek that person's constructive feedback, for instance, on your work in some way, shape, or form, or the way you think, etc. Maybe it's a research institute, maybe it's some sort of club or committee or student government opportunity that's specific to Bowden. But don't just say, I'll keep looking for constructive criticism at Bowden, or I look forward to appreciating my roommate's work at Bowden. That you could say about a student at any college. You're not giving a Bowden-specific detail other than by using the name of the college. So you really want to get more specific and really anchor this in proof that you know about Bowden, you know well about Bowden, and you're going to be able to fluently and articulately convey details about how you see yourself running with this type of philosophy, value system at Bowden, and not just something that you have appreciated in the past. Again, the way the prompt is actually written is the offer represents Bowden's values. Please reflect on the line you selected and how it has meaning to you. Many students will just focus on the past. Do not just focus on the past. Also make space for the future and painting a picture with words of yourself spending your next 4 years, hopefully, or at least parts of them, at Bowden. Maybe you'll study abroad somewhere else, but at least most of the next 4 years, again, will hopefully be you at Bowden. So if you want to make them believe it and that you've given a lot of thought to this, that should definitely be an element, or if not the element, that's most memorable of your optional essay in response to Bowden's The Offer of the College. Now, interestingly, Bowden doesn't stop there with optional essays. Bowden gives you another opportunity to write another essay about navigating difference. Here we go. Bowden believes that only through building a more diverse and inclusive campus community will the college best prepare graduates to be contributing and useful citizens of the world. Every graduate of this institution should be confident in their preparation to be able to navigate through differences in all sorts of situations. A Bowdoin education does not guarantee these skills, but it does impart a set of tools necessary to bravely enter unfamiliar conditions with the confidence to deal effectively with ambiguity. If you wish, you may share anything about the unique experiences and perspectives that you would bring with you to the Bowdoin campus and community, or an experience you have had that required you to navigate across or through difference. And you can say yes or no, I would like to respond. So again, interestingly, both of Bowdoin's essay prompts are basically optional, I think. But let me actually go back. I'm speaking out of turn, excuse me. Yes, they're both optional. Yes, they're both optional. So again, I'm reading it and I'm sort of slurring my words here. It looks like I'm not focused because I've been busy editing essays for weeks, so I apologize in advance for not being as clear with you, but I want to underscore both of these essay prompts are optional, but I strongly recommend that if you're able to write and think coherently in English, that you respond to both of them. Only if you are completely a case of someone getting in for the wrong reasons would I recommend skipping these, because you just can't or you won't be able to write in any cogent manner. But again, for 89 to 99% of applicants, I would strongly recommend that you respond to both of these optional prompts, because these are opportunities for you to positively differentiate your interest in Bowdoin, as we mentioned already in the first prompt, and also just share more about your value system here in the second prompt as it intersects with a particular time when you navigate a difference. In terms of how I would respond, you again only have 250 words. I would strongly recommend that you talk about a time in which you learn something or grew in some way, shape, or form as a result of interacting with an idea, a person, a situation that was new or novel or unique to you, and really it made your mind or perspective expand or change in some way, shape, or form. Now, again, many students will prefer to just literally wrap up that story in a nice little bow, talk about something that happened in 11th grade, let's say January of 11th grade. It was very meaningful. They'll talk about it, and that will be that. I think that's lovely, but if you can try to connect the dots by the conclusion to how you will harness this sort of newfound perspective as a student at Bowdoin, and it's done in a way where you're not repeating anything you mentioned in your first Bowdoin essay, I would strongly recommend it. This could be sort of a second shot at sort of arguing for how you align philosophically with Bowdoin. So if you don't mention Bowdoin at all in this particular optional essay, it's not the end of the world. But I would still try to mention Bowdoin and make a connection in some real specific way as to how this story will impact your behavior and how you engage with the opportunities available to you at Bowdoin. Now, I will also say that in terms of the structure, again, very traditional. I always recommend this, frankly, with any essay that's not completely out of left field in terms of the prompt. A 1 to 2 sentence intro. You only have 250 words total here, so maybe a 1 sentence intro with a thesis, a body paragraph or 2 max if you have some space, and they're short paragraphs where you prove the thesis and you elaborate on the thesis and you show your story, and then a conclusion sentence or 2 where you say something new. Okay, and I think you're going to be in a great position if you follow my advice. And again, I apologize for being a little confused there about the required or optional nature of the first essay just a moment ago. Beyond that, I will point out that Bowdoin doesn't stop there for you to be able to differentiate yourself. Optional video responses are big deals these days at some schools like Wash U in St. Louis and Brown in Providence, and Bowdoin in Brunswick, Maine is no different, but theirs is a little different. Bowdoin extends you the opportunity to add a video response to your application materials. Instructions for completing the optional video response will be available to you in your application acknowledgement email only after you submit it through the common application or wherever you're submitting your application. So it's going to be in the Bowdoin application portal. How this works is that you have 2 shots to videotape yourself on your device in up to 2 minutes. and you have 30 seconds to respond to some random question that's thrown at you. I would definitely say that, again, once you've submitted your application to Bowdoin, if you are in the, I would say the top 90th percent, from the 10th percentile all the way up to the 99th percentile in ability to communicate, I would say no problem, do this. Do the optional video response. Only if you really have problems with your affect, or you can't keep your eye contact on a camera, or if you have other issues really being self-conscious. I mean, again, these would be 10% of cases or fewer. Only in those scenarios would I say just don't even do it, because it's going to cause you such anxiety, or you're just going to be so critical of the way you look or you behave, and you're just always going to regret doing it. You feel like you mess it up. I don't think you can truly fail this, and I would recommend all students take advantage of an opportunity to show themselves as a living, breathing human on this video for Bowdoin. I think it's great that Bowdoin offers you this opportunity to sort of let your hair down and be you and answer some random question that they would ask. And again, a random question could be something like, what's the best thing that's happened to you in the last year? Or tell us what you would like to, how you would like to spend your birthday. But if you feel like that's just too scary for you, then you don't have to do it. But otherwise, I would say take part in it. Make sure that you are checking your emails right after you submit your application, the days after, so that you can submit that follow-up optional video response as quickly as possible. So again, you can add a new dimension to yourself and put a face and body language, or at least head language, since maybe your whole body won't be on the camera, to the person who has written this application that we're talking about up until this point. And of course, they're going to look at your transcript. They're going to look at your test scores if you submit them, your letters of recommendation, which, by the way, they require 3, 1 counselor, 1 academic teacher, and then 1 someone else. But ultimately, this is the best way, I think, to really provide your closing argument. And so they don't even let you do it until after you submit the application. I would recommend it for you. And of course, I do have some tips on how to ace interviews. Those are below this video, linked below again. And this is not officially an interview, but Bowdoin does, now that I mention it, offer you the opportunity to take part in an optional interview, either on campus with a student or admissions representative, or with a member of their alumni community. And if you are up for it, again, I would say at least 90% of students should be up for it if they're really serious about Bowdoin. I would strongly recommend you take advantage of the opportunity to interview. It's a great opportunity, again, to put a face to the name, a face to the transcript, make yourself come out to life. You can ask questions to the person interviewing you. They can ask questions to you, and it's a nice conversation. Again, some of my interview tips are below this video, but they also are somewhat applicable to how you prepare maybe for a video. But I probably should do a future video about how to prepare for a virtual, basically virtual interview slash online question. Basically, that's what Bowdoin's optional video response is, where they ask you some random question. Now, if you don't like the question, or if you don't like your response to that you have for 2 minutes, you can trash it, but you can only trash it once, and then they ask you one other question. And if you don't like that response, you're screwed. So ultimately, I would be really sure that you don't like your response to the first question, and it's just not worth submitting, before you say delete it, don't share it, because the next question you respond to is going to be the one that's submitted to Bowdoin if you do in fact do the optional video response. You also have an opportunity to do an optional art supplement. I'm not an artist, and I never provide really advice with art supplements, but if you're an artist and you know what you're doing, that's another way to differentiate yourself, even if you're not planning to major in art at Bowdoin. Finally, I will mention that Bowdoin is another school that does allow you to add an additional upload to your supplement to the Common Application. The specific language is as follows. Many students won't even pay attention to it because it's at the very end of the supplement for Bowdoin, but it reads as follows. Optional additional information. If there is additional information you feel will support your application, you are welcome to include it here, and then they give you an upload button. I strongly recommend that you upload a full-fledged, unabridged extracurricular resume about yourself, where you can elaborate in greater depth about your extracurricular activities than you are able to do in the very skeletal activities page of the common portion of the Common Application. Now, you may be asking, Craig, how do I put together a strong, unabridged extracurricular resume about myself? Well, I'm very glad you asked. Below this video, there is a link to my very short course, which is, I think, 45 minutes to 49 minutes in length, which is named aptly, How to Build an Extraordinary Extracurricular Resume. I strongly recommend that you either rent or you purchase that course If you rent it, you have it for 3 days. If you buy it, you have it forever. It costs just a few dollars. And that course will explain to you, even though it's not the most aesthetically pleasing course, if you're paying attention and you can focus in the English language, you have 40 to 50 minutes where that course will teach you explicitly how to build an extracurricular resume that will be a net value added to your overall application on any college application that allows you to upload a resume. And actually even some others, because there are other tips in that video about how you can infuse content from that resume you put together as a result of watching that course or taking that course into almost any application, even if it doesn't take an uploadable resume in its supplement. But luckily in the case of Bowden, since this video is about Bowden, this video is a perfect time for me to mention that course, because you want to leave them with a full understanding of the depth and breadth of what you've accomplished since you graduated 8th grade. So the summer before 9th grade and later, if you've accomplished things and they're worth sharing, which are basically any things that you've accomplished that are beyond your transcript and your test scores, they should and can be included on your optional resume upload that you can upload right there and then on the supplement to Bowden's Common Application. All right, so that went longer than I thought it would. Here it's a little liberal arts school in Maine, and you thought this was going to be a 5-minute video, but I think I've covered it pretty well. Again, my name is Craig Meister. I'm a college admissions coach. You can learn more about me at collegemeister.com. If you liked this video, if you found it helpful and you stayed on till the end, please give it a thumbs up, like it, as well as subscribe to my channel and tell your family and friends about it, because maybe this video can help them or other people in your orbit, either this year or in future admissions cycles. I do not just videos about how to get into particular colleges, but also videos on other aspects of the college admissions process. But most importantly, as I like to say often, I hope you stay safe and you stay well, and that you get in to Bowdoin College.